This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it.
Welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today's guest is a property investor and developer who balances a high-level leadership role in a multinational company while also growing a property business as well. Also, while raising two young children. She was one of the early clients with us at Property Portfolio Building and went on to complete Simon Ducci's Mastermind 34 as one of the top performers in October 2024. So welcome to the podcast, Hannah Haikal. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Great to be here in Dubai as well.
Yeah.
Different venue.
Exactly. Super happy to see you over here.
No, it's good
First
to be
time
here.
that we've met in person.
Missing Phil, of course. It's our first episode without Phil. So, yeah, we're missing him, but good to be here. Right. So we always want to start off with a bit of an icebreaker on this podcast. So I know you're a master scuba diver. Is that right? Can you tell me a bit about that and the 100 or so dives you've done worldwide?
Yeah. And of course, this was a hobby that I had pre-kids.
Yeah.
So scuba diving since I've been in the UAE the last 10 years. My husband and I, we took the opportunity to get ourselves trained. Master scuba diver is basically just making sure that you've got enough certifications on the rescue front.
Yeah.
You do some speciality dives like night diving, deep diving, and then you log 50 dives and you're counted as a master scuba diver. And then every holiday we took, we take the opportunity to do some diving.
Have you gone all around the world with your diving? Is there some particular place you go regularly or just all over the world?
Any holiday that we did, we would always try and do a dive. So even when we went to Greece to get married, we went to Santorini, we did a dive there. We did a liverboard ship once actually in just off the coast of Bali.
Yeah.
So that was the liverboard for the whole week diving, and we did some on land diving for a week. Otherwise, we just add a couple of dives every holiday that we do.
Excellent. That sounds like a really great hobby. I'm jealous of that.
Distant memory. I'm looking forward to rekindling it as the kids get a bit older.
Sounds good. Right. So you want to tell me a bit about your story and your life and, you know, what your bit of your background, your family, schooling and stuff like that, just to kick us off.
Yep, sure. So you can hear from the accent, I grew up in the UK. I was actually born in Newcastle. Lived there for the first couple of years and then moved down to London with my family. Grew up in London and then moved to Hertfordshire for secondary school. Spent my, my next sort of 10 years there. Still had a base in London. And my mum is half Dutch and half English and my dad is Egyptian.
Okay, so a bit of a blend.
Yeah, and that meant that we got to spend summers in Egypt. So every year we would spend our summer in Egypt. And that was really what gave me my passion for the ocean, actually. Spending my summers there.
It's supposed to be really good diving there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. That was probably the best diving. And it also gave me an appreciation for the life that my parents had been really intentional about creating for us in the UK. So I was lucky and fortunate to be able to study and work in something that I loved. So I'm a business psychologist. And throughout my career, the last 20 plus years, I had the chance to really work in an area that I'm passionate about, and had the opportunity to work across 4 different continents in that time.
Yeah.
And then I've now settled here in the UAE and Dubai for the last 10 years with my husband and our 2 boys who are 2.5 and 6 months.
Yeah. So 2 under 3. It's great, isn't it? Very challenging.
I know you know that very well. Yeah, it's tough. We're getting there though, and we feel blessed. You know, it took us a long time to start a family. So we just feel really blessed that
it's really rewarding, isn't it?
Boys.
Yeah, sounds good. Right, so moving forward then. So we always want to find out in this podcast what everyone's definition or thoughts are on what financial freedom is, what it means to you, and like where are you on that journey of what you consider as financial freedom?
Yeah. So financial freedom, I think for me, it's about having enough passive income that will support your cost of living and your goals and your lifestyle without relying on a traditional job or a paycheck. And it really gives you that flexibility and that freedom to choose how you want to spend your time. So it doesn't mean you're not working. It just means maybe you have choices and you choose what you want to do. So it's all about choice and freedom, flexibility. Where am I on that journey? It depends where I'm living. So if I was living in the UK, I would probably be able to live comfortably on the passive income that I've been able to build with the property portfolio so far.
Yeah.
However, out here in Dubai, I'm maybe 1/3 of the way there. So it's still a way
So
to
you're
go.
on your way to
On my way, and
I know you've got a few properties as well, so you're doing well moving forward. But
for me, it's not a race. It's also just about enjoying the journey. You know, I have a job that I love that I'm doing that provides me with a stable income. So this is really about that future vision for the family and that future nest egg, and securing their future. So it's not a race, but it's something that I am just steadily building and
and if you
working
keep
towards.
building it over time, you'll get that compound effect as it grows. You
Yeah.
just keep building it and everything like that. So it's
Exactly.
putting that work in up front for that, like you said, that long-term future benefit, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. So what strategies are you using at the moment to achieve your financial freedom goals, to get to that end goal on your journey? What strategies are you using?
So strategy, what I'm using now is it's a mix actually. So back in 2017, I started looking at the stock market. So that was the first thing that I invested in, and that was nothing exciting, no trading. It was buy and hold strategy. It was looking at ETFs, a very simple 2-fund portfolio, and just steadily paying in. Again, because we don't get pensions out here in Dubai, so I was always thinking about, well, how are we going to save for the future? So since 2017, I've been doing, ETF investing.
Yeah.
I've also worked for a couple of companies out here, and I've got single stocks invested with those companies.
Right.
So now Uber, which acquired the company that I was at previously, and my current organization. So I have some single stocks. I've got some ETFs. We have a bit of play money that's in crypto. So a few years ago, we did start investing in that. That's my husband's area.
Yeah.
I didn't really learn or research much about that, but
in Bitcoin or
no, in Cardano.
okay.
So look, it did really well at one point, and then it suddenly crashed. So it's still there. There's potential, I think, especially with what's going on in the US now. So there's a bit of we've spread ourselves across single stocks, crypto, and ETFs.
Yeah.
And then bricks and mortar, something that you can touch and feel. In 2022, when we were pregnant with my first son, that's when I really started thinking about diversifying into property.
Yeah.
I had a property already. I'd become an accidental landlord when I moved out to Dubai. And I thought, let's, diversify and start thinking about how can we invest in something a bit more tangible and physical. So that's where it all began.
Excellent. That's how obviously we met and got in touch. Do you want to tell us a bit about the actual properties you've got and the sort of strategies you're using for those properties at the moment?
Sure. So I started off with single let. So I have my property where I lived that was rented out for the 10 years that I'd been here. And then by 2022, I was doing my own research, and I had some savings that I wanted to invest. So I stayed on a single let strategy. I didn't really know much else. I started exploring other strategies, BRR and SA and title splits. And by the time my pregnancy got closer, I just thought I need to put the money somewhere and feel that it's working for me. So I looked north, where you get better yields and cash flow. So I was looking at Newcastle, and I found a couple of single let terraced family properties. So invested in those, and those are still a part of the portfolio today, doing very well. And that was really when, as I headed into my maternity leave, I thought, let me get myself educated and let me start learning about this properly. So I started embarking on the mastermind program, got myself some coaching. I was still doing my own research and exploring things. And actually, that's how I came across you. I think I was doing a search in one of the Facebook groups around yields in Manchester, trying to stack a deal. And I saw that you'd asked the same question a few years earlier. So I reached out just to say, did you ever get that yield? And then you said, let's have a conversation. And it turns out a few years on, you'd now, built up PBB. And it just so happens that you also knew my mentor at the time and somebody else who was out here in Oman who I'd spoken to. So it was meant to be. We connected. And then I thought, as an expat, why am I trying to do all of this myself?
That's a good thing about the network, isn't it? When you know these people and
exactly, word of mouth.
Yeah, word of
you
mouth.
Reached out, proactively. We connected. The offer made a lot of sense to me as an expat, busy working. mum with a full-time job. So yeah, that's how we met.
Yeah, so you got into HMOs to build up a bit of cash flow as well. So you've got
Exactly.
a combination of
Yeah,
the buy to let
simple.
and the HMOs as well to
Yeah.
build up the cash flow, which is
And-
really good.
And that was a strategy that I decided on as I worked with my coach, because I was all over the place looking at everything. But that was the one that we decided was needed to focus.
And that is one of the challenges, isn't it? When you start educating yourself and talking to people, there's loads of different things that you can do, different strategies, different areas, and all these sort of things. So sometimes it's hard just nailing it and working out, that's what I'm going for, and I'm going to do it really well, isn't it?
And especially being an expat, because a lot of the time people in the UK who invest in the UK, they'll focus on where they live, where they can drive to quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas for expats, you've got the whole country. You're not wedded to one area. You might know some areas better than another. So that opened up even more, decisions for me. So
where to go, what's the best
Exactly.
place, and
So once we spoke, that was it. I knew HMO was my strategy for high cash flow. You guys were based in Manchester, so that became my area. So Manchester, HMOs, and focus on building that.
Yeah, because at PPB, we've kind of simplified a little bit sometimes when people are looking at, England as a whole, the UK as a whole. We go down south, you might get, really high values, good capital growth, but your yields are going to be quite low and the cash flow might not be there.
Yeah.
If you go really far north, like you were saying, like your Newcastle areas and things like that, you might get high yields, good cash flow, your capital growth might not be as high,
Exactly.
etc. Whereas we say in Manchester, which I know it's considered the north, but it's sort of central, isn't it?
Yeah.
Slightly above centre of the country. You get a bit of a decent balance, we think, because you can get decent yields, especially the northern part of the city that we're investing at, really high yields, really strong renter demand, and then a decent balance with the capital growth, or the headroom for capital growth, we think anyway. So
Agreed.
yeah, I think you made the right decision. You found the right people.
I'm still quite diversified across the country, but definitely focusing there now for the foreseeable.
And just flipping back, are you still investing in the stocks and shares and things like that and the Bitcoin that you were doing, or is that slowed down a little bit?
Yeah, it has slowed down. So I used to try and do every quarter. I would try and even just a little bit, just to keep it going as well, to make the costs worth it, the platform costs. We didn't add anything to the crypto, but we're reinvesting, and it's the same with the ETFs. We're reinvesting, but I am due to update and put some more money in there.
Yeah.
I don't put as much as I used to when that was the only strategy.
Yeah.
But I do try to keep.
It's hard balance, isn't it, when you're doing a few different asset classes?
Exactly.
Like, in property, there's lots of different things you got to put the funds into and have a decent amount of cash buffer. And it's hard to balance, because I find that as well, because I invest in, things like stocks and shares. I was in gold and things like that. But so it is a difficult balance, but it's good to diversify a bit and have that right balance, especially over time. You can, as you get more settled in the property portfolio as well.
Yeah. Right.
So we, on this show, we like to talk about typical days that people have, so people get a good idea of what it actually means, being someone that's working full time with 2 young kids, also running a property business, and things like that. So some people are really big on routines, others not so much. So I just want to know from you, what's a typical day for you, day in, day out?
I know. And when I saw this question, I did laugh out loud, because I was like, typical day? What do you mean? I'm just surviving every morning. But look, maybe pre-kids, even before kids, I didn't have a regular routine. There was at one point when I read Miracle Morning and I was, doing the 5 a.m. club, I did have some kind of routine where I would be up early. There would be an element of yoga, there'd be an element of meditation and quiet time. There would be some visualization, some affirmations. So I did all of the kind of that morning routine, and I must
5
say,
a.m. club sort of.
Exactly. And I do think I was at my best at that time when I was doing that. Of course, now with 2 kids and a full-time job, my days are pretty much looking like I try to get to a gym class at 6 a.m. before everybody's awake. Then I can get back and spend a good hour with them before I get ready and go to work. I work at the office 3 days and I work from home 2 days. Working from home these days means working from a coffee shop, because there is no working from home with 2 kids under 3.
Well, I actually rent I share an office space just down the road from me for that sort of reason. It's very hard to get the separation from the young kids.
Exactly. They'll just come knocking on the door. So 3 days in the office, connecting with colleagues and in-person meetings, and then 2 days I can focus and work from a coffee shop and get some time. And that's it. I have a bit of a morning. Then by the time I finish work, it's straight back into, you've got the youngest one is having bath and bed, bath, feed and bed. And then the eldest one, I have a bit more time with him because he goes to bed a bit later. So I'll
What
always,
time's his bedtime, the oldest one?
he's now going to bed about 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
The other one is about 6:30 to 7.
Yeah.
So in fact, at least a couple of times a week I miss them. So I've got calls with the US quite often. So last
Right,
time
yeah.
I finished at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
On Tuesdays I might finish at 6:30. So some nights I'll miss the bath and bed with the youngest, but I'll always try and get the time, at least with the eldest, to do the books before bed and dinner if I can,
Yeah.
and make up for it at the weekends.
Do you have dedicated times for your investment strategies that you try to allocate, or how do you work that in, or just as and when it's necessary?
Well, and as I've just returned from maternity, so during maternity, and I found myself waking up at, all times of night and not being able to go back to sleep. So
Yeah.
sometimes I would just have, hours on my phone where I was able to really focus because I was up. It also used to be in the morning. So oftentimes if I would wake at 6, I could do some work then, but I'm now using that time with my exercise to get myself back.
Yeah.
So it tends to be, there is one day a week where we have some support. We have a nanny who comes on Saturdays.
Yeah.
She comes in the week as well to support. So Saturday we have a bit of free time. So that tends to be
Yeah, if it's some key things to do.
a few hours on a Saturday would be my focus time for property. And then in the evening, as soon as the kids are in bed, so after 8:30, and I'm usually in bed by 9:30, I might have some time. That's when I'm usually on WhatsApp with you guys, catching up on my emails for the day. So
yeah, that's sort of the back end of the day for us, because I remember we tend to get a few WhatsApps at like 5 p.m. UK time.
Exactly.
That's
That's when I've just got the kids to bed and I'm now catching up on the day. Or it would be first thing in the morning before I've even gone to the gym, when everybody's still sleeping.
Yeah.
And that's probably middle of the night for you. So
yeah,
it's not as structured as it used to be when I protected time for like property action.
yeah.
But I think, as the baby gets a bit older and the routine gets a bit more predictable, I think I'll
It's a
get
difficult
back in.
balance, isn't it? But the reality is, and that's why we like to talk about it, is that, people have different challenges, especially with young families or their job and all these different things that, you've got to balance and try and work out the best way.
Yeah. Even calls with the UK, that would always be after 8:30 at night for me. So and then I'm exhausted from the day. So even having calls with the UK is usually 8:30 at night.
I can relate to that because I've just done a month in Australia.
Oh yeah.
And that's a 10.5 hour difference to Manchester. So
yeah,
I was doing calls that are 8 or 9 at night, which is like mid-morning UK time. That worked best. But at that time of night,
it's tough.
It's tough, isn't it? Especially after you put the kids to bed or whatever.
Yeah, you just want to sleep.
Yeah, good stuff. So I want to move forward to a bit of discussion about case study, because you've done 2 projects now with PPB.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the larger one that you did, was actually which was your first project, even though it's just finishing on site pretty much this week.
Yeah.
So just to start with, like, why did you look to use PPB in our services, and how did it benefit you? What value did it add to you, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah. And initially as I reached out, it was just by chance to find out a yield value. But as I say, when you told me about the portfolio build services, and I hadn't heard of that model before, as an expat, a busy expat, full-time job, young family, it just made a lot of sense. I had toyed with the idea of using a sourcer in the past. And if I then had to do a refurbishment, I'd have to find a project manager.
Yeah.
So, and then I would have to find a managing agent. So having a service where you can offer all 3 in one, build the relationship. And also I think it was the expertise that you guys bring to the table. So, your background, Tim, 20 plus years in project management, the word of mouth referrals from people that I trusted and I knew out here and in the UK, and the network that you have access to that takes years to build up. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And the value that it's added for me is, yes, it's taken time, and yes, I still need to, have emails and conversations with you, but versus doing that myself.
Finding the team and talking to all the different parties and things like that.
Would I have had the confidence as well? Because it's not only the expertise and the network, but you guys have also been kind of a voice of reason at times when I might be panicking or worrying about something, and you give a very objective, this is the options, this is what we can do, this is what we would think. So again, without that sounding board and that partner, that thought partner, sometimes I might have given up, I think, if I was on my own going through some of those challenges.
Oh, that's great. No, thanks very much for those. And it is interesting, actually, because like part of the reason we actually came up with the business is not necessarily just for people, expats or abroad and things like that. But one of my learnings when I was building my portfolio, I'm a project manager and I project manage all of my projects myself, 10 or 15 to start with. And my learning was that I had massive burnout from that and, it almost killed me type thing. So
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you're a business owner or a property developer, you just need to step back and go like, even if I'm an expert in that specific thing, my time is best spent, building that business or, being the owner rather than getting into the nitty gritty of it. So I think it's a good learning sometimes just to take that step back and understand what's the best use of your time regardless. So.
Exactly. And everyone thinks, oh, I can do it myself, or we can do this, or it'd be interesting. And especially I think for people who live in the UK who want to pop by and go and do everything in person, but it's that value versus cost mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, because ultimately, some of the key things, and we're talking about it earlier today, is like raising funds is a very key element of building a portfolio.
Yeah.
So if you're getting into the nitty gritty of say project management or sourcing or something like that, it takes away your time to just try and like raise funds and talk to people that might be investors and those sort of things. So.
And the time it takes to try and you can't be an expert in everything. You have to, it's that who, not how. You have to really think about, you've got 20 plus years. How am I ever going to get that level of knowledge? I'm not. So, I ask you, what would you do in this situation? Yes, I have to make the decisions, but I really value the advice and the guidance that you guys give me.
Oh, thanks very much. Thank you. So case study wise, because you really jumped into a relatively challenging project for your first decent development. Obviously you had some buy-to-lets before that had some, some refurbishment works, but this project was basically a half commercial. I think it was a gym and a pharmacy at one point, and the upper floor was a big flat. And what did you decide, or what did we decide to turn this into? Do you want to tell us a bit about the project?
So this one, the large project that was my first, so I did go all in. Yeah. This used to be a pub actually. I think back in the day it was
a pub. I think initially it was a pub, wasn't
it? And then it was a gym and a pharmacy. I think commercial viability on the ground floor, it was obviously not working. It hadn't been working for a long time. So we got it at a great price.
Yeah, it's not on a high street. It's in a residential zone.
Yeah.
It's quite convenient to like the metro on the town, but it's not like footfall that you get for a commercial. So.
But now actually, as we were talking about recently, there's a lot of redevelopment in the area.
Oh, huge amount. Yeah. So there's some big new apartment blocks near it, and as part of those works, I believe that developer has to develop next door, which they are doing at the moment, to make it a public realm area. And then across the road, that's all getting developed into new housing. So it's just going to be amazing.
And the landscaping is going to look really nice. So we were really excited. We actually discovered that was a bonus that we found out later on. But at the time, this was on auction. I think it had failed at auction a couple of times. We tried to make an offer outside of auction. The seller was not interested. And in the end, I think just maybe 2 or 3K above what I'd offered him outside of auction is what we got.
Secured it for you.
Yeah, the hammer came down on my son's first birthday in 2023 on July the 15th. So I will remember. So it's coming up for 2 years now. So look, it was a big project. It's exciting. I'm not afraid to take calculated risks. We planned to do an extension on the ground floor to make it a 7-bed and a 5-bed HMO on the first floor, both of them all en suite. It did mean that we needed full planning, as you well know. And so we went for full planning, and that's where some of the challenges started to come in. So we needed to get a bat survey. Then the roosting season for the bats, we almost needed to wait until the summertime. Yeah. But then actually on reflection, when we looked at the report, we discovered that they hadn't assessed the correct area. They'd assessed the whole area rather than just where we were doing the extension. So thankfully, we overcame that.
Yeah, because with the planning application, like you said, it was a full planning application for sui generis to convert the commercial to a 7-occupant HMO.
Yeah.
But the top floor, because it was an existing established flat, that actually had permitted development rights to go to a 5-bed. Correct. So for that reason, like you said, they couldn't. Part of the assessment was to completely eliminate the top floor, wasn't it? For that reason. Yeah, exactly. Which is the point we argued.
So we got over that hurdle, and then the next hurdle was there was lots of complaints from the neighbours in the area. Despite doing a door knock, I think they were slightly further afield.
Yeah.
So the neighbours in the vicinity, they understood the scheme, they understood the profile of the tenants.
Yeah, the direct neighbours were fine, weren't they? It was like you said, I think it was someone to do with the council that just lobbied
further along.
the other side of town, which was unusual.
But we went to full planning committee in February 2024. So, quite some time after.
Yeah, so this
the
actual
original
council
purchase.
it's located, I think the ruling is if there were 3 or more objections, it basically goes to committee. So there's
Yeah.
a huge amount of applicants that go to committee in this
Yeah.
council. So
But I remember watching it. I was watching it online.
yeah,
So I could see Phil there. He had done a great job of, representing the case. And I remember watching it online live. And
I watched as well because Phil did the presentation, did
Yeah.
talk, didn't he? But
he-
I had a huge frustration watching it because can you remember they talked about 2 key things. One of them was to do with the flood zone, and basically we'd done a flood report. It was all okay,
Yeah.
etc., etc. But once they start talking about it, you can't say anything in the committee. So Phil couldn't say anything. I'm sitting at home. You might have been as well going, a flood report was already done. It's fine. And
then they were worried about the drainage and the bins, which
That's
had
right.
also already been responded
and do you remember
to.
the other one? One of the ladies in the committee was saying, "Oh, it's 7 double rooms, so it could be 14 occupants."
Which is
And then it
totally
went
wrong.
back to the I think the planning officer. He was sitting at the top. He said the application was for 7 occupants.
He was brilliant.
Yeah,
He was actually
really
really
funny.
he was very much on our side. So I was really happy. It was unanimous.
Yeah,
And when we saw the unanimous results, that was amazing.
and actually commented on like the quality that we do and the product that you were doing and things like that was helps as well. So yeah, another tip, if you're going to do a good quality HMO with good finishes and all en suites and things like that, it can help the application.
And I think that's the problem, is that so many HMOs are not done to that level or that quality. So there's a perception, isn't there? There's
It's a bad stigma sometimes. Yeah.
There's a perception of what kind of caliber of people will be coming to the area and what will happen.
And like you said, that's why sometimes a door knock's good, just to show the neighbours that this is the sort of quality we're doing. These are the sort of tenant profiles we go after, so at least they know that we're not trying to attract the tenants they're worried about in the area.
And I think we had 2 or 3 break-ins during the period from when I purchased it to actually when we had completed, to then getting this planning approval. So we'd already tanked the whole building, removed the staircase. There was a couple of break-ins and lots of vandalism. So you would think, having a derelict building, you would want to do something with it.
Much better to get it up and running.
To give those kids
because it was set back at the end of the road. It was a little bit hidden at the back when it's not being used. So
that, I think that also went in our favour.
Stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional. It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the Property Filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast.
The planning was fully approved in February 2024. We then had some fun with the lender to get the development finance. That was a lot of learning for me in terms of process and how lenders work on development finance, and just the kind of information that's needed and how long that can take. So that took about 3 or 4
yeah,
months.
because that was, you basically bought it with cash, didn't you, to secure it? Then we got the planning in place, and then we could apply for the development finance to get that for the build and everything.
And then by the time we broke ground, that was June 2024.
Yep.
And then it's been a huge project.
And we've literally got furniture going in this week. So.
Yeah, very exciting. So I've just seen it, all of the pictures as we've gone through the project week on week. We had some bad ground conditions at one point over the Christmas period.
For the extension.
Delayed it by a few weeks, but as you say, we've split the addresses now as well. We created a new address for the first floor. We've got a new meter going in there soon, and it's going to be ready for tenanting within the next few weeks, which is really exciting. So that's been almost a 2-year project, and in that time, project number 2 has been purchased, has been redeveloped from a 3-bed to a 5-bed, and then completely tenanted out. So that one was actually done, I think, before the end of last year.
So it is like the big scale ones, you're always looking at 18, 24 month period, aren't you, to end. Whereas, what we call the permitted development ones, the 5 or the 6 beds with no planning, friction and things like that. It's usually overall a 12-month process or thereabouts. So it is quicker and less risk, but the big one, tell us about the numbers. Like what could it return at the end after all those challenges?
And that's what makes it worth it. I think when I tell you about the numbers, and you know the numbers, but it's also nice to have the variety, like the different ends of the scale.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I did both, although they both seem to happen at exactly the same time with lots of the major parts.
Yeah.
I'd like to space that better next time. Numbers are 145,000 purchase price.
Yeah.
There was about 40,000 in purchase costs. That was slightly higher than expected because there was an overage that we paid to get removed. That was about 13,000.
Yeah, so basically, just to explain to the listeners, there was a legal overage on the property that basically said that you had to pay a certain amount of profit in the future to, some old parties. Yeah. So we negotiated that out.
Yeah.
But it cost a bit of money to do it, but it still was worthwhile. And it was a challenge. So that probably put off some other people bidding maybe and things like that when they read the legal pack. So it was a challenge, but worthwhile, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was indeed. So that pushed the purchase costs up a little bit, but it was still, the numbers are still amazing. All in, the development costs, the refinance costs, VAT, project management was just under 400,000. Expected GDV, we've got the valuation is happening in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's soon, isn't it?
We've obviously got to wait for some of the AST contracts to get into place. We're expecting the valuation to be about 780,000. And the ROI is 100%. So I will pull 25,000 back out.
So pretty much paid off in
money back out within a year.
So free property after a year.
Yeah.
Few challenges, but yeah.
And cash flow is about just under 25k a year, 2,000 a month.
Net cash flow, isn't it?
Yeah, net cash.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. No, it's been a great,
been worth it.
Been a good project. There has been a few challenges and things, but
lots of lessons learned. But I think, if you don't take risks, you don't get the gains.
So if you had the same, you'd do it again if you go back in time. What would you
look? And I wondered, should I be doing the smaller project? Could I've got a couple of those with a more sleep at night, less stress. But I don't know that I would have had the results that I've got with this one in the 2 years. I quite like the redevelopment. I think that's definitely the conversion project.
Yeah.
Probably I wouldn't do something with full planning again.
Yeah.
I'd probably stick to the permitted development to mitigate risk, unless I had that as a fallback option, so I could have permitted development, which we had with this one as well.
Yeah,
that was always permitted development was always going to be the plan B.
Yeah, the fallback was always going to be a fire bed on the first floor.
Yeah,
and then we could have looked at there were other options for the ground floor, whether it was flats or whether it was certain types of commercial spaces or something like that. There was a few fallbacks, so it was still good. But the end result of what you'd done was the best option, really, wasn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. So moving forward then, so on this show, we like to talk about successes and also challenges and failures. Just we want to be as real as possible. There's obviously lots of challenges and difficulties that come up, especially when we're doing, property developments and just working in property generally. So I'd like to know, what are you most proud of? What's a success that you're most proud of? And then what's something that's been one of the biggest challenges or, failures you've had today?
The way that I was looking at this is actually, I think part of what I'm most proud of is actually my ability to push through a lot of the challenges and get to where I got to or where I'm at now, and with everything else that I had going on in life. So if we look at the last 18 months have been just such a whirlwind. With so much going on personally and professionally and in property. So if we take from 2023, the second half of 2023, started that project. My son turned 1. I actually, the same month in July, I started a new job with the company that I'm at now. I had about 3 different business trips throughout that year. And we had then the planning challenges that came up at the end of 2023.
Yeah.
Going into 2024, I then, on top of pushing through the planning and the refinance and that project, we then purchased, refurbished, converted and tenanted the second project.
Yeah.
And I also had some issues with my single lets. So 2 of my single lets had some structural issues with one. I was doing a big refurbishment after some tenants who had not been paying rent for the best part of a year. I had to go through a formal eviction, legal eviction. The costs on one of the
went through the courts, did it? That eviction?
Yeah. And I wasn't able to recoup the cost for that either. So then getting that property back up to spec was about 15,000. The other property, which I'd done an intentional refurbishment to raise the rents, was I invested 30K. But then just less than a year later, we had some issues on the ground floor, pull up all the floors again, fix that, relay, that was another 7K. So all of these projects, I was actually managing myself. I didn't have a Tim and a Phil.
Yeah.
I was managing trades, and I was doing this on top of a new job, on top of a toddler, and then I was pregnant in 2024 with my second.
And this is real life stuff that happens and does happen in property investing, doesn't it?
So I'm like 2024. I've just started my pregnancy at the beginning of the year. I was, going through a difficult pregnancy as well throughout that year, plus all of these things,
Yeah.
the planning, the refinance, the project number 2, and then 2 big projects with the single lets and evicting a tenant. That alone, plus then a full-time job with travel, international travel, was all of those challenges. It did feel tough at times. And I think for me, that's what my success was. I then completed Mastermind as one of the top performers. I had opportunities to speak in the property circuit.
You need a good support network, haven't you? Because you really have built up your network. And
yeah, and that's it. I think it's, you guys advising, being a sounding board. The network in Mastermind is incredible, and just the
overall PIN network, isn't it? There's loads of good people.
That's how I kept going. I think just staying connected with people, the encouragement and support, and just keeping my focus on what's in my control. What can I do here? There's no point worrying about things too far down the line. Let's focus on what do I need to do right now? How are we going to solve this? Yeah. And there's no point stressing. If this has happened, it's happened. We can't undo it. Each point, and that was the approach that I took. So for me, I was proud to finish as a top performer in Mastermind. I was proud to do the Spokesperson of the Year competition at SIL. Super proud of the product that we have with the second, and now what's going to come with this one. And of course, proud of my family and, the little human beings they're becoming. And
doing everything while having 2 young kids. It's really exceptional because, with the young kids as well, I really appreciate how difficult it is for families like that.
Yeah. So,
especially working full time as well, like you said, it really is a balance. So you've done really well.
Thank you.
We're big on education here and learnings and all those sort of things as well. So I just want to know, like, what would you say is the best piece of advice that, like, you've either read or an individual you've talked to has given, or something like that that's helped you in what you're doing now?
It's and I say this all the time. It's about mindset. It's about education. And it's about your network.
Yeah.
So for me, those 3 things are absolutely invaluable. And just a bit of a mantra that I've had just for that period where things have been really tough and things have started to calm down now. The single lets are going, the HMO, the first one's up and running. But it's just...
It does calm down, doesn't it? You really feels like when you have those challenges, it's going to last forever, but it doesn't, does it? You get through it and it does really calm down.
And I had this mantra, and it's a quote that always sticks with me throughout the last 18 months, and it's just do the best that you can with what you've got and with where you're at. And that's all that you can do, and give yourself a bit of grace sometimes. So I had to do that. I can be tough on myself, or I can be, trying to push too hard, or you have a lot of parent guilt for not being around at certain points for the kids. So just do the best that you can with what you've got and where you're at. And if you're interested in property, think about, working on the mindset, because I think that can be 80% of the work is about your thoughts and your beliefs.
Absolutely, because we're hardwired from our evolution, aren't we, to stress out about things or worry about things as like a survival mechanism in a way, aren't we? But
fight or flight.
Yeah, fight or flight. Whereas obviously the world we live in is different.
Yeah.
So having those thought patterns can help because it protects ourselves, and we don't take crazy risks, but also it can stop you, can't you? Because it's like, that thought pattern's not helping me push forward, is it? Yeah.
And actually, even today, we were talking earlier, even though I've gone through this journey and all of this learning, I still now, you can have those beliefs can creep back in, second guessing myself and actually going back to, strategies and which direction do I want to go from here. So I think it's constant work. You don't just do work on your mindset and that's it, it's done. It's continuously challenging yourself. Is my thinking helping me? Am I focusing on the right things? Because, what you do today or your future is going to depend on what you do today and the decisions that you make. If you don't make decisions, that's just as bad as making bad decisions.
And like you say, sometimes you give yourself a bit of a break because, you got to make a decision, what you want to do, and as long as it pushes you forward and you're moving forward and you're making a difference, you know, like you said, that's all you can do. Sometimes there could be something that's better or worse or whatever, but you know, it's just part of it.
Yeah. And the other thing I see a lot, and I talk to this about my peers in mastermind, it can be that comparison, constantly comparing or looking at what others are doing. Just focus on your goals, you know, set goals, which gives your brain direction. Focus on, you know, that gain that you can make over a period of time. And also that reflection on looking back at what you've achieved. And even just that exercise today of looking back over the last 18 months. You know, when you
reflect, I agree. Reflection is really important, and even in our business at PPB and Invest, every Friday we do, which is today, isn't it? So we do a weekly wins, and it's just good for the team just to go through and say like, oh yeah, these are the 3 key things that have been wins this week, and at any point, like you said, if you do a 12, 18, 2-year reflection and go, what have I actually achieved in that period? Sometimes it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
to go
that's
back.
really motivating. And then that will motivate you. If you don't take the time to reflect and look at that, then you just keep thinking, oh, I want to be over there. I want to do this. But actually also celebrate those wins and how much you've come along.
Absolutely. And just keep enjoying it. Just keep enjoying the process. Right. So we do ask our guests to leave a question for a future guest. So this one is, what is your reason why to achieving your financial freedom goals? If you got a specific reason why, or why is that you go about it?
Yeah. And it's just 100% my family. So, you know, building a future, building a legacy, giving them choices and options. And also for me and my husband, for us to have flexibility and freedom and choices in how and where we spend our time.
Yeah.
That's always been our biggest drivers in this. So was that a question left by a previous guest?
It was,
Yeah. Who left that question?
I have absolutely no idea. To be honest, it's not recorded.
It's on the previous one.
Yeah.
Nice. I like
just
it.
in big capitals on the notes. So no, that's great. And I think like it is a very common theme we get on this show. It's like it's the choice freedom, isn't it? Because like, even if like, because I think you said before, you're working a job that you love and all those sort of things. So it's not like you're at a goal that you want to leave that tomorrow or anything like that. But you know, at least you know that you're building up something, so you got freedom and flexibility, because who knows what can happen in the future with the world and sickness, illness, family, whatever. It's just good to have that security and to help with that flexibility and freedom. So that's really
and a legacy for the kids, you know, for them to have that freedom and flexibility and choice. And I do love my job and I don't have any intention to leave anytime soon, but we never know, you know, I could get sick tomorrow, something could happen. So it is a bit of a...
And do you think it's a bit about, especially with the kids, where it was like them getting that learning of what you've done to help with that, and, you know, at least instilling that education in them the way that you've learned it?
And I'm
looking forward to doing as well.
Yeah, me too. I don't think we have enough of that financial education, entrepreneurial, you know, flair, you know, enterprising mindset in education at the moment. It's quite academic and traditional. Actually, we've just made the decision to put our son in an IB school out here, which means it's an international baccalaureate rather than the English education system out here, which a lot of people do, because we want to focus more on that broader
more creative
perspectives. But it's also, you get financial education. There's a lot of robotics and AI, but it's just about, helping them to problem solve and think critically. And as soon as they're old enough, of course, I'm going to have them doing some kind of property course or reading all the books about investing and financial acumen.
Oh, excellent. Yeah. Because I think when you look at Western schools, let's say British schools, Australian schools, places like that, really the design for that was for the Industrial Revolution. Like that's the backbone of it. You know, the teachers, you know, they work hard, do excellent job and all those sort of things. But the design of it and the curriculum and key things like that is, you know, it's like you said, it's just not really designed for entrepreneurship, business, finance, education and management, all those sort of things.
It's not evolved and it's not adapted to the world that we are today.
No, it's just completely unsuited to it. So yeah.
I get to ask you questions now.
Yeah, I asked you to bring one question, but you said you wanted to ask 2 questions.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah, I can never make a decision. So if we have time, I've got one question which I think I shared. So it's, you are very well embedded in the property community in the UK. You meet a lot of property investors every day. And I just would love to know, what do you see sets apart those who are successful at property investing and developing versus those who aren't? What would be your differentiator?
I try to keep it very simple sometimes. And, you know, with the success you see with, you know, the property investors that I've seen, it comes down to a few things, but genuinely it's the action takers. You know, it's the people that have a plan, you know, they're literally out there executing that plan, you know, and they're not letting things get in their way. It's not like, oh, my mum thinks it's a problem and, you know, I'm going to destroy myself, so I'm not doing it, or I'm too worried about what my friends from high school are going to think, or something like that. They just, those successful, they don't let that happen. They just, this is what I'm doing, this is why I'm doing it, and I just go out and take action, and I do it quite consistently, because it's not like you're not starting a business that's like a new invention that you're trying to get out to the world that may have never existed or whatever. It's property investing has been around a long time. There's lots of people that have done it well, you know, and you just need to go out and execute and not have the excuses. Some people you see just, there's too much, the course junkies, there's too many course junkies that go out there, you know, not implementing enough.
They're wanting to wait until you've learned everything.
Yeah. And the other thing not to do is, like, you know, try not to just keep, I think, focus. I think success in life sometimes just to focus is like, what am I going to focus my energy to? How much time am I going to put into that? And if I do it consistently, I'll just get a result. You know, it's there. I've planned it. That's what I do. I execute it. I take action. And because even at PPB, one of our core values we talk about is just showing up and getting shit done. And if you just show up and get shit done, you will get success. And I think that relates to many aspects of life, but especially in the property investing space.
It's the same in passive investing as well with the ETF funds. It's just compound over time. Yeah. You keep taking action, you keep executing and do it consistently, keep investing and then looking at the compound. Yeah.
And I'm similar with that, because I do, I've got a few stocks and shares ISAs for kids, and, you know, me and my wife do it as well. And I've literally got a reminder every month to go, like, make sure money's in it, make sure that's topped up, and just keep doing that every month. And, you know,
and sometimes you don't see the benefits of your actions. You keep taking action every day. Yeah. It's that consistency that's absolutely key, because sometimes it might take a while for you to see the impact and the benefits. And that's when then looking back and reflecting is where you get the
that point you said before about reflecting your last 18 months or 12 months or 2 years or whatever. You really see it. But yeah, if you look back yesterday or whatever, you know, it's the day before, you can't see too much, can you?
Okay, second question.
Yeah, we've got a bit of
time.
Last
question. Yeah. We're good. This is a personal one. So for you, as you look back and as you reflect on your journey, what's one thing or one lesson that you learned early on that you think set you up for success or had a big impact in your property investing?
It relates back to the similar sort of thing, but I sort of talked about it a little bit earlier, but it's understanding what you're best using your time for. So my two biggest learnings for building my portfolio, I started with things like single lets, which are great long-term assets. I'm going to keep them forever. But my goal was to get to my salary replaced by the end of 2021 at the time. And that wasn't getting me there quick enough. So that's when I went higher cash flowing deals and things like that. So if I could go back, I just would have started them earlier and then flipped at a certain point.
Okay.
And then the other thing is I talked about it earlier in the podcast, but understand the highest value things you can do for your business that will push you forward. So the example is, you know, if you need to raise 300 grand of funds or something to achieve your goal, that's your focus, and that's a really high value task. So whether that's networking, reaching out to people, that's your focus.
Yeah.
Don't go and decorate walls at your property when you could be doing that, as an example, because
obviously picking out lampshades.
Obviously you can pay decorate, or picking out lampshades, or, you know, running around getting furniture and all those sort of things. So when I was building my portfolio, I said it earlier, but I was the project manager because that was my background. But the time that involved, you know, stopped me from doing other things. So that's why I look at PPB and I'm like, you know, the reason we developed this business is because we can see the challenges that we had building our portfolios, you know, of the time and the hassle and, you know, doing those bits and pieces. So, and then it's even building our team to make sure that as directors of our business, we're not getting too involved in the nitty-gritty, but we have the systems and processes for the team to do those things and do them well. So the other one we talked about earlier today, but the setup for a finance type system can be really important as well. Yes. So I had a bit of a mess in a way, because I had a few different companies and a big portfolio that grew quickly. So I know the pain of that. So sometimes it's as simple as getting a good bookkeeper set up.
Yeah.
Set up with Xero, and just have a good P&L type system that you can review monthly to start with. Just have those key things. So you know that you know the numbers, and you know, especially with the HMO portfolio, what are the utilities, what are the voids, what rents are we getting, have a budget, and then you can just check it off monthly, and you'll start to move into that process and try to get a smooth process.
And get that done early before everything starts to spiral.
Yeah, I set mine up too late. It was a bit of a mess, but yeah, that's another big learning. So I hope there's a few there that
really helpful.
that help out.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Well, that takes us to the end of the show. So thanks very much for coming along. I think there's some really good content for our listeners, and I think you've really done an outstanding job from living, working in Dubai and investing in the UK. So
and thanks to you and Phil for everything and your partnership. So thanks for having me today, and great to finally meet you in person.
Yeah, exactly.
First time.
Yeah, exactly. It's great to be in Dubai. Thanks very much. Until the next one. Thanks everyone. See you soon.
Bye. Bleepers.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.